A 2-month Fox 25 investigation helped send a serial sex offender back to jail.
During our investigation, we also uncovered evidence hundreds of other sex offenders may be violating the terms of their probation in a different way. But Fox 25's Nick Winkler found out it's likely none of them will be sent back to prison. It's an investigation you'll see only on Fox. Nick.
The sex offender we caught violating his probation may ultimately have to serve 8 years in prison, but other sex offenders violating a judge's orders may not be punished at all because of state budget cuts.
Warrant came down today.
With guns in hand, Pottawatomie County's warrant team moves quickly.
Got a warrant for your arrest, Gene. How for?
They're arresting registered sex offender Gene Burrows at his home in Shawnee.
Oh. Will you tell my wife to come here a minute, please?
For something we caught him doing 2 months earlier. In September, we found Burrows riding a lawnmower with a little girl in his lap. We came across Burrows by accident while covering an unrelated story nearby. When we realized he was a sex offender and saw children at his home, we pulled his court file and found he had been convicted of exposing himself to several children at a park. Burrows is out of prison on probation and not allowed to be around children. So when we saw him with the little girl again, we asked him about it.
Camera for, dude.
We're trying to figure out why you had a little girl on your lap. Before a probation officer could come and check on Burrows, a man pulls up. He drapes a blanket over the little girl, carries her out of the house, and puts her inside a truck. He says he's related to Burrows.
This is my dad, so it don't matter.
It's your dad. It's okay for your dad to be a sex offender and have your daughter on his lap. You're okay with that? The man will not tell us why he's leaving so suddenly or where he's taking the little girl. Are you all taking that little girl away so Mr. Burrows doesn't go back to prison? Burrows' probation officer saw our report and the following day filed his own asking the state to revoke Burrows' probation. Court records also indicate Burrows had violated his probation earlier in the year by no longer attending court-ordered sex offender counseling.
We had to start looking at areas to cut.
Turns out, Jerry Massey at the Department of Corrections says the state cut all funding for sex offender counseling due to a $40 million budget deficit. In the last 4 years, though, the state has spent nearly $300,000 counseling more than 600 indigent sex offenders like Burrows, but the state can no longer afford to do so.
Most of them are required to go to treatment by their rules, conditions of probation. So obviously they'll have to find a way to pay for that on their own.
But what if they cannot? 1,037 sex offenders are now supposed to pay for their own counseling. If they do not, will all of them be thrown back in prison?
I don't think we can legally put them in prison for something they cannot complete because there's no money for it.
Pottawatomie County District Attorney Richard Smotherman says the state must find an alternative to counseling.
Either that or we're going to have to bring them back in before the court and adjust their probation. We can't have them in clear violation.
But does allowing sex offenders to stop counseling without going to prison increase the risk they'll reoffend?
I'm not going to tell you it doesn't increase the potential that they may do something.
Brenda Carter counsels sex offenders, says only the most deviant, which make up about 13% of the sex offender population, are likely to commit another sex crime. Those who stop treatment, she says, are likely jobless, homeless, and only willing to commit crimes to survive. Overall, though, Carter says most want treatment and find money for it.
For the majority of them, cutting the funding, they still attend. I still have a significant number of men who do attend treatment and pay their own way. I do have someone that are living on the street, some of them that are living on the street and they have no funds, period, but they're still attending treatment.
Carter is counseling some of them for free. It makes no difference, though, in Burrows' case. He's being arrested for having the little girl in his lap.
Mr. Burrows, did you do anything inappropriate with that little girl?
You and your punk.
You know that's against your probation, the terms of your sir. Is that all you have to say?
That's all I got to say to you. Maggot mother.
Burrows served just 1.5 years of his 10-year sentence. It's the second time he has been convicted of indecent exposure.
Mr. Burrows, how do they normally treat sex offenders in prison?
Punk.
Burrows is scheduled to go before a judge and learn his fate December 1st. Sources say the little girl he had on his lap is safe. Separately, we called several key lawmakers to see whether they'd be working to find money for sex offender counseling. None agreed to speak with us, though. Michael.
Nick Winkler, thank you. Pottawatomie County deputies also arrested Burrows' wife, Pat. She kicked Nick as he questioned her husband. Take a look.
Pat! God You get in the house right now.
You're under arrest, ma'am.
Put your hands on your back.
Let me go put this
No,
stuff.
ma'am,
Hey,
you're
don't
under
touch
arrest.
my wrist.
Ma'am,
Don't touch my
you
wrist.
are under
Bro.
arrest, ma'am.
Okay.
You should have thought about that before you start kicking people.
Don't.
Patricia Burrows has been charged with assault and battery. She spent a night in jail, but is out now.